Welcome back to the Echoes of Ihsan podcast, where we kind of delve into Imam al-Ghazali's wisdom.
His thoughts on the Prophet Muhammad.
Exactly. And the source material for this deep dive is pretty fascinating. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not doing like a straight biography of the Prophet. Instead, we're getting al-Ghazali's perspective.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's like this unique lens
Yeah.
on this major figure.
Yeah. So where do we even begin with this? I mean, al-Ghazali's works are so vast.
Well,
It seems like in this A Message and a Leader, he immediately sets a high bar for us by presenting the Prophet Muhammad as this ultimate role model.
yeah, he frames him as the pinnacle almost
Yeah.
of what a Muslim should aspire to.
Right, and he doesn't stop there. He actually gets into the specifics.
Yeah.
I noticed he highlights humility as a key quality of the Prophet Muhammad.
Right.
Right.
You're picking up on something very, very essential in al-Ghazali's thinking.
Yeah.
Humility is essential in his framework. Think about like his emphasis on disciplining the self, recognizing our own flaws and limitations. The Prophet never let his status inflate his ego, and this is central to al-Ghazali's concept of tazkiyat al-nafs, which is the purification of the soul.
So humility is an active process for al-Ghazali.
Oh, for sure.
It's not just about being modest. It's about subduing our egos to allow for that growth.
Absolutely. And he doesn't stop at humility. He also goes on to talk about the Prophet's understanding, like his ability to grasp complex concepts and to convey them with clarity and eloquence.
Right.
And this links back to al-Ghazali's own pursuit of knowledge, not just accumulating facts, but like attaining true wisdom.
Then there's this focus on the Prophet's struggles.
Yeah.
He doesn't shy away from showing us that even this ideal human being faced hardships.
That's important because it reminds us that this path to righteousness is not meant to be easy. The Prophet endured, persecution, loss, and betrayal, but he never wavered in his faith or commitment.
It makes you think about how we view success and power today, right?
Yeah.
There's this expectation of ease and instant gratification.
Right. Totally.
But al-Ghazali, through the Prophet's life, is showing us that true strength lies in perseverance and facing those challenges with faith.
He's highlighting the struggle itself
Yeah.
as a process of refinement.
Okay. And finally, there's this focus on expression.
Yes.
The Prophet's ability to communicate the message clearly and in an impactful way.
This goes back to al-Ghazali's thinking about language. The Prophet's eloquence, his ability to move hearts and minds, is a reminder that conveying the truth effectively is essential for positive change.
Okay. So it's fascinating to me how al-Ghazali takes these seemingly very different qualities.
Right.
Humility, understanding, struggle, and expression, and kind of weaves them together into this portrait of this ideal human being.
It's not just a portrait, though. It's more like a blueprint for us.
Right.
It's a guide for those seeking to embody these qualities in their own lives.
Now, this brings us to a point that I found really thought-provoking. Al-Ghazali seems to stress the Prophet's crucial role in helping us understand the Quran and Islamic law.
Yes.
He mentions the word sunnah a lot.
You're picking up on a fundamental concept in Islamic thought.
Okay.
The Sunnah refers to the Prophet Muhammad's actions, sayings, and silent approvals that are recorded in Hadith literature.
Because it's not just about the Quran as a text.
Exactly. The Quran is the divine revelation, but understanding it requires this lens of the Prophet's lived example.
Okay.
The Sunnah shows us how these principles of the Quran are applied to real life.
It's like having a user manual for some complex piece of technology.
Yeah.
You need a guide to show you how to actually use it.
A practical guide, yes.
Yeah.
The Quran provides the divine blueprint.
Yeah.
But the Sunnah shows us how to live those principles out.
Okay.
Navigate the complexities of human existence with God's will.
This is where it gets really interesting. Al-Ghazali says that sometimes the literal interpretation of a law can clash with its deeper spirit or intention.
Yeah.
Maybe you're encountering this in your studies.
Oh, of course. The letter of the law is one thing, but the spirit of the law is equally important.
Right.
This tension arises in any legal system, especially one that deals with human behavior and, ethical dilemmas.
Al-Ghazali uses this analogy of a man who's fasting but then eats a date
Yes.
because he believes it's nighttime.
Yes.
So technically he broke the rules, but his intention was pure.
Exactly. He wasn't deliberately disobeying.
Right.
This highlights al-Ghazali's point that intention is important.
Yeah.
It's not just about the outward action, but the state of the heart.
So how do we resolve these types of conflicts between the letter and spirit of the law?
He urges us to consider context,
Okay.
to consider the specific circumstances in which the rule was revealed. We need to understand the prophet's reasoning for his actions and rulings. This is how we can grasp the underlying principles.
So it sounds like Islamic jurisprudence isn't some rigid system.
Nah.
It's more of a dynamic process.
It is a process of interpretation and application.
This makes me think about those situations we all face in our daily lives. Where rules just seem to miss the point.
Absolutely. Like
Yeah.
those complicated bureaucratic procedures
R-
or social conventions that just prioritize form over substance.
Right.
People follow the rules blindly without considering the compassion or understanding.
Al-Ghazali would probably say we need to apply this principle of context and intention to even those very mundane situations.
I think so. I think he'd remind us that true righteousness isn't just about following rules. It's about cultivating a heart that is sensitive to the nuances of each situation
Yeah.
and strives to embody the spirit of justice and mercy.
It's about aligning our actions with those higher principles.
You've captured it beautifully.
Yeah.
He's calling us to move beyond a superficial understanding of law and religion,
Yeah.
to cultivate a heart that's attuned to divine wisdom.
This deep dive is already proving to be incredibly rich.
Yeah.
We've barely scratched the surface of al-Ghazali's insights, and I feel like I'm gaining a whole new perspective on both these men.
I agree. And we've only just begun. There's so much more to explore. But I think we need to pause here for now and let this all sink in, and we'll pick up the thread in our next session.
Yeah, that was good.
So Al-Ghazali's perspective on death.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
Because he presents it so differently than how we think about it today.
Yeah.
It's almost like this radical reframing.
Right, he does.
Like in Remembrance of Death, he talks about death as the believer's tryst
the tryst.
with the beloved.
Yeah, with the beloved.
That's powerful.
It is.
It's so different from the fear and aversion that we have in our culture today.
Right. It's not an ending, it's a meeting.
Yeah.
It's a reunion with God.
And he tells all these stories, right?
He does. He does.
To make this point.
Yeah. The one that sticks out to me is the account of Hudhaifa.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even in the face of poverty and illness.
Yeah, he welcomes death.
He does. He sees it as a liberation from hardship.
It's a totally different perspective.
It is. It's
Yeah.
like you said, a radical reframing.
It also ties into that hadith,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Where the Prophet Muhammad says that recalling death 20 times a day earns the merit of martyrdom.
It does. Yeah.
Wow. That's intense.
It is. But it shifts our priorities.
Right?
If we're constantly remembering our mortality.
Yeah, we're focused on what really matters.
Exactly.
Why do you think we're so afraid to even talk about death in our culture today?
Well, I think it's because we put so much emphasis on material possessions and physical comfort. You know, we try to prolong life at all costs. We've become attached to these fleeting pleasures.
Right. So death is seen as a threat to all of that.
Exactly. An unwelcome interruption.
To happiness.
Yeah. But Al-Ghazali, through these Islamic teachings, is reminding us that this life is temporary.
It's just the prelude
It
to
is
something much greater.
a grander reality.
Yeah. This reminds me of how al-Ghazali describes the Prophet Muhammad's own passing in the life of Prophet Muhammad.
Yes. Such a poignant scene.
It is. There's a sense of loss, but also this profound acceptance.
Right. He describes the Prophet's composure in the face of his physical suffering.
Right.
It was like he was welcoming it with open arms.
Yeah, and Abu Bakr's reaction is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
He says that prophecy itself has come to an end.
Right. He acknowledges that.
It was a unique moment in history.
It was.
It really shows you the responsibility that the prophet carried.
Absolutely. He delivered God's final message.
Right.
He established this model for humanity to follow for all time.
It makes you think about how facing loss shapes how we live and appreciate the present moment.
It's true. Maybe embracing death allows us to appreciate life more fully.
To live with more intention.
Exactly.
So in your other source, Sayings of the Pious at Death, al-Ghazali talks about how different people face their own deaths.
Yeah, such a fascinating collection.
I noticed this contrast between Muawiyah and Abu Hazim.
Right, Muawiyah had worldly success and political power.
Yeah.
But in his final moments, he realized that wasn't where fulfillment lay.
He kind of regretted prioritizing ambition.
Over spiritual pursuits.
Yeah. And Abu Hazim was so content with his simple life.
Right. He faced death with such serenity.
It's interesting how those two are kind of juxtaposed.
It is. It shows how worldly achievements pale in comparison to spiritual growth.
And then there's the story of Mumshad al-Dinawari. What's with him refusing entry to heaven for 30 years?
It's a story that defies our typical understanding of paradise.
Yeah.
I mean, Mumshid was this mystic.
Yeah.
And he seemed to yearn for something even deeper than paradise.
It's like he was looking for an even deeper union with God than what heaven offered.
Maybe our conceptions of paradise are limited.
Yeah.
It's a much vaster reality.
So the pursuit of closeness with God doesn't end.
It's eternal.
These stories really highlight those values of spiritual growth and contentment.
They do.
And closeness to God.
They really do.
Okay, this reminds me of another idea that al-Ghazali keeps talking about. The heart having two doors.
Ah, yes. And Marvels of the Heart.
Yeah.
He describes this beautifully.
Yeah, one opens to the world around us.
The sensory world.
The one we experience through our five senses.
Yes. And the other door leads inwards to the unseen.
It's almost like having a secret passageway within ourselves.
To a hidden garden of spiritual insights.
He even relates this to how the Prophet Muhammad received revelation.
Right. It wasn't through his senses.
It was this direct unveiling of truth.
An inner knowing.
And he believes that this isn't just for prophets and saints.
No, it's accessible to everyone.
We all have that potential for spiritual insight.
It's just a matter of opening that inner door.
So what can we do?
Well, al-Ghazali talks about purifying the heart.
Getting rid of all that negativity?
That's guarding our thoughts and nurturing positive emotions.
Like gratitude and compassion.
Exactly.
We have to clear a path for that divine light.
That's a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
He also emphasizes seeking knowledge.
And applying it.
Yes, living in accordance with what we learn.
It's not just about knowing, it's about being it.
And then there's remembrance, constantly recalling God's presence and his attributes.
It's being connected to that divine frequency.
Exactly, shifting our focus inwards.
This makes me think about those moments when you have like a sudden insight or inspiration.
Oh, yes.
Like those could be glimpses through that inner door.
Maybe. The veils are momentarily lifted.
It reminds me of those moments of awe we experience in nature.
Yes, those moments of connection with something bigger.
Al-Ghazali is saying those experiences can be cultivated
Through intentional practice.
by purifying the heart.
Yeah.
This is also thought-provoking.
It is. We've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, from death to those two doors, and we're just scratching the surface.
It feels that way. We've got more to uncover.
Okay, let's take a break, and we'll pick up on this again. Okay, so we've been talking about this idea of accessing this deeper knowledge and wisdom. It makes me think about jihadi nafs.
Jihad.
That al-Ghazali talks about in disciplining the self.
Yes, it's a central theme in his work. It's about this inner battle that we have.
Right, so it's not the typical outward struggle.
No,
Yeah.
no, it's about conquering our own desires.
Okay, the enemies within.
Greed, envy, arrogance,
Right.
lust, anger.
Okay.
It's about purifying our intentions.
And al-Ghazali uses the Prophet Muhammad as an example of this.
He does. He shows how the prophet constantly engaged in this struggle.
Even though he had such an elevated status.
Right, even facing external challenges, he never lost sight of this.
So it's this reminder that true victory is about conquering ourselves.
It is. And he gives us guidance on how to do this.
Right.
He emphasizes self-awareness, recognizing our negative tendencies.
And cultivating positive qualities.
Yes, like patience, gratitude, humility.
Right. It's not just about fighting the bad stuff.
It's about nurturing the good.
And he tells that story of Ibrahim Atam
Yes, the
Yeah.
ruler who gave up everything.
for a spiritual life.
He prioritized the spiritual rewards.
Yeah. Like he understood that worldly things are temporary.
It's a radical idea, especially today.
It is, but powerful.
It is.
What about these veils that al-Ghazali talks about?
Ah, yes, the things that hinder our progress.
Like getting caught up in material possessions?
Or empty rituals.
Right. It's about going beyond just appearances.
To a more authentic spirituality.
So how do we apply this jihadi nafs to our own lives?
Self-reflection is key.
Okay.
We need to honestly assess ourselves.
Take inventory.
Exactly. And then develop strategies.
Right.
If you struggle with anger, practice patience.
Seek refuge in God.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're prone to envy, focus on gratitude.
Okay.
And of course, seeking knowledge is essential.
To combat ignorance
Yes.
and purify the heart.
It gives us guidance and inspiration.
And companionship is important too.
Right.
Right.
Surrounding ourselves with good people.
To support us on this path.
It's a lifelong journey, this jihadi nafs.
It's about striving to be our best selves.
Aligning our lives with God's will.
This has been such an incredible deep dive.
It has. We've covered so much.
We've barely scratched the surface of al-Ghazali's work.
But hopefully gained some valuable insights.
So what one idea will you be taking away from this?
For me, it's jihadi nafs.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful reminder to focus on that inner battle.
I love that. And for me, it's the idea of the heart's two doors.
Beautiful.
It's a metaphor that really resonates.
It does.
And for our listeners, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity.
To explore al-Ghazali's work further.
And to reflect on the Prophet Muhammad's example.
And embark on your own journey of spiritual growth.
It's a path worth taking.
Leading to inner peace and a deeper connection with the divine.
Until next time.
May your hearts be filled with light and your lives with purpose.